Farah Ali here, live on LinkedIn and YouTube. Hello to everybody who's watching, listening. I'm going to have a wonderful guest today with me. I have to say that I couldn't believe my luck. I actually met Jade at an event a few days ago, earlier this week. And I was so impressed by her and some of the young people that she was with. And it was the Violence Reduction Unit conference, the first ever conference in London. I was so excited to be there. It was a fantastic networking event, an opportunity to meet so many youth workers from all over London. So I am really fortunate today that Jade said yes, and I can interview her today. As you know, many of you who follow me on YouTube and LinkedIn know that, I love being spontaneous. Yes, I'm a bit of a planner and a goal setter and all of those other things that you know about me, but I also love being spontaneous. So it's wonderful to have Jade here today. I'm going to quickly call her in. Here's my lovely guest, Jade.
Hi.
Hi, Jade. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. So you haven't been interviewed yet?
No, not well, yeah, I have, but not for like live streaming or anything to do with youth work yet. So this is my first time, yeah.
Fantastic, brilliant. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself. So just a little bit about LinkedIn Live. We will have lots of people coming in and watching, listening. So it will show up on people's feeds.
Okay.
And if and for those that are not here now, they may join at a later stage. Also, you people can go back and watch it on our profiles, well, my profile, so anybody can watch it later. And I just want to say to anybody who is here, I can see that there's one person on live at the moment. Please do comment, share any questions that you might have or comments that you have whilst Jade is talking. It would be really helpful for her. This is her first ever experience of LinkedIn Live. So Jade, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are first of all, and what do you do.
Hi, my name is Jade Barnett, known as Jade Brown as well. At the moment, I work for the Prince's Trust as a youth development lead. I started with them probably about like 4 months ago. I also am part of the YPAG, which is the Young People's Action Group that is underneath the London's Violence Reduction Unit, made by the Mayor of London. Um, I also podcast, so I have my own podcast called Ice No Tea, where I talk about current affairs that young people get up to. But I also have two segments where I talk to young CEOs, which is called Conversations with CEOs, speak to young CEOs about their journey, their ambition, their drive, and just advice to help any other young adults or young people that want to go down the same pathway as them. And then I also have Talking Youth Work, which is a segment for youth workers to come on and speak about their journey and how much their work has helped improve young people's lives. Yeah, and then I do a bit of bits and bobs here and there, radio present, learning how to PT at the moment. So yeah, it's quite busy. So it's kind of hard to explain myself in such a like a nutshell, if that makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah, no, wow. Wow, I can feel the energy. And I'm not, I'm amazed that you managed to do so much. Do you have any free time?
Yeah, I guess so. Weekends, I do have a little bit of free time, but I would say it's mostly late. Like it's late hours of the like when working hours are done. So it's kind of in the balance of do I go out and hang with the friends or do I sleep kind of thing. So sometimes, yeah, it's a bit difficult, but I make it work. So yeah.
So tell me from like a personal basis, I guess, an emotional, if you like, how has the journey of all the things you've been doing in the past year and a half, especially the youth work, how has the journey been like for you?
Difficult. I think I didn't really find my passion for youth work until I started YPAG. I always knew I wanted to give back to young people. I always knew that everything I've done since it's been radio, music, I've always like had radio shows that promote young people's music. I've had, you know, YouTube channels where I've interviewed young people who are getting into the music industry or in the music industry. So I've always known I wanted to do something for young people, but I never really knew kind of where my heart lied, if that makes sense. So when the opportunity came up with YPAG, um, I was like, yeah, do you know what? Let me just apply for it, because I'm always trying to take opportunities on board and apply for everything I can. So it wasn't until I actually started the YPAG I was like, whoa, like this is serious. Like this is actual work that I'm gonna have to put in, and I've enjoyed every moment of it. And it just pushed me to apply for the Prince's Trust, which was a job that I didn't think I'd be able to get, because I've been part of youth clubs. I'm a young people person myself. I've been through all the trials and tribulations that a young person has to go through, but I haven't worked with young people directly yet, if that makes sense, like on a one-to-one basis. So I didn't know if I was in the right position to apply for the Prince's Trust, because there's probably so many candidates that have worked with young people for like years and years and years. But I guess just from my experience of being a young person and how much I want to give back to young people, I actually got the job. So yeah, and then even being in the YPAG now, you're only in it for a year, so my time is coming up to an end soon, and it's going to be passed on to the next cohort. So even in that sense, I feel like, I guess a bit, I don't want to say the word disheartened or upset, but I guess it's like a chapter's kind of not closing completely, but coming to an end. So in a way, I'm a bit unsure what's the next move, as well as being at the Princess Trust. So yeah, it's kind of up and down at the moment.
Yeah, no, but naturally there's going to be a sadness because anywhere you gel and you create and feel a sense of belonging, it's almost like our work is like our second family, right?
Yeah,
And then that comes to an end. But like you said, doors close but doors open.
very
So
true.
many people will be listening to this interview after today. You won't imagine how far these things go, and people are watching you and people are listening to you, and there's no reason why you, with your huge influence and your ideas, can't come up with an idea how the young people's action group could make changes.
Yeah, definitely.
There are peer mentors that then are required to train the next cohort, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I know for I know for sure that my connection with like the VRU isn't gonna come to an end just as soon as I stop YPAC. I know that there's gonna be, I'm sure I'm gonna get invitations to go to events, and I've already started the work of like, hopefully one day creating my own organization and things. So just creating these links that I'm able to create while I'm beside the VRU now, it's like so important, I guess, just for my journey, future journey, I should say.
Excellent. I was listening to Leonita and a couple of your other colleagues in the Young People's Action Group. And one of the things I realized just listening to you is like you guys had such wonderful solutions for the future to, especially in the area of youth work. And I have this thing about pay, because I've always worked in the not-for-profit sector, the voluntary charity sector.
Yeah,
And what annoys me about our sector, and especially youth work, is how people expect you to do things for free just because it's charity or
yeah,
voluntary.
yeah,
So I have this thing about young people's value being felt. And I think not just the violence reduction unit, but any agency that wants young people on board for their ideas should be paying them,
yeah. By
you
far,
know?
I can't stress enough how important that is. Like, I don't mean to make this sound come off in the wrong way, but time is money. And a lot of young people struggle with finances. A lot of young people can't actually afford to just take the bus to go to the offices, or, to go to these events. So, and at the end of the day, our voices are just as much important as the people that are getting paid voices too. So we should be getting paid regardless. I I'll be very honest with you, even though I love everything the VRU stands for, and I'm down to do voluntary work. I think the position that I'm in now, where I live by myself, I drive, I have expenses that need to be made. I don't know if I could do YPAG as much as I do now if I didn't get paid for my time. I just think as well, it gives us a sense of value. Like, yeah, someone actually wants to employ us to say what we need to say. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
It's like yeah, like I don't see any reason why no young person should not be getting paid for what they are working in, or even an adult, because youth work is not easy. Like, working in these sectors, they're not easy. Like, you could have a full days of working with young people who don't want to speak to you, don't want to engage with you. It's been a hard day, and then to go home and not even have any like pay at the end of the month or the end of the week. I just think it's a bit outrageous, and that's one thing I think youth cuts definitely took a toll on me and my anger for how a lot of people don't appreciate how hard youth work actually is.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I started youth work when I was 17 and I had to start as a volunteer. But by the age of 18, I was doing paid youth work. And again, there were no full time opportunities, there wasn't enough work, and certainly not for women of my skin color, my religious background, etc. But like, I went from youth work to law to so many other things, and I'm currently a CEO of a charity. But like, again, youth work is a big part of it.
Mm.
And I've been in this position for 12 years, but we didn't start off how we are now. We've grown over the 12 years. But I've always advocated, what really gets to me is when, the public sector, for example, somebody who's a consultant is on 60, 70 grand a year, will come and say to the local charity CEO or project manager, oh, like, we're going to hold a session, a workshop, will your young people participate? And like, there's nothing for the young people. And hold on a minute, what about my time?
Exactly.
My time costs money.
Exactly.
You want me to leave my job and all the other important stuff, responsibilities I hold at work, to come and attend your forum or your workshop for free?
For free. Yeah, exactly.
Why?
Exactly.
But then you're going to go back, and at the end of the year, when you have your appraisal, your boss is going to tick, yeah, such and such has
Get her, yeah.
engaged the community.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
they engaged the community but didn't give nothing to the community. Doesn't make much sense. I find that it's another thing that like kind of not trying to come off topic a little bit, but it's like, for example, there's a lot of companies that have people in higher positions that are not, I'm not saying that they're not in a great position to be in a higher position, but have never experienced something that a frontline youth worker has experienced, if that makes sense. And the frontline youth worker is on the front line constantly working, doing the hard work, and they have the experience, first-hand or second-hand experience, but then they're getting the worst pay, and the person at the top who makes a decision, who is part of the strategies and the problem solving and all of that stuff, that's never had any first-hand or second-hand experiences, are getting the higher pay for what the frontline youth worker should really be getting paid too. So even just in that sense, it's like you have all these people with experience on the front line, but they're getting paid the pennies. But the people who know nothing about what goes on the roads or on the streets or within these young people's minds are getting paid all the big bucks, but yet hardly know anything that really goes on in the front line. Confuses me, baffles
I
me.
know, I know exactly what you're saying, and I'm gonna pick on that right at the end because a little bit controversial, but like, privilege
Yeah,
and people holding privilege and not realizing how they could be using their privilege to make positive change in our communities and be remembered for that. If I was in had a fancy title on a top-notch government level job, I'd be using my privilege to make things happen.
exactly.
Once I'm gone, how will people remember me? That woman who did XYZ for. And like I just feel like it's common sense to me, but it's a bit of a bug for me anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Anyway, I'll go on to ask you about your wonderful podcast, Ice No Tea.
Yeah, so yeah, I started Ice No Tea about a year ago. Well, it was a year March this year. I just wanted to start something because my ultimate career goal is to be a presenter and a host. Obviously alongside all the youth work bits and stuff, but that was always the dream for me since I was a young kid. So, and because I'm so able to talk to people and I like interviewing people and I like having conversations and just, I guess, diving deep into how other people think about things. You know, there's so many opinions out there that I just wanted to get to know. So I thought, why not start doing a podcast? I was procrastinating on it for so long, and then podcasting became quite popular. Like a lot of people started making podcasts. So I was like, hey, I need to just get this out. So COVID, I started my podcast. I traditionally started it just to do like current affair topics. So what goes on in social media, what young people are kind of hooked on, what people want to hear. But then I kind of got to a place where I did YouTube before and I realized I enjoyed doing my interviews. I enjoyed sitting down, talking to people, finding out about their life, how they got there, their motivations. And I just thought, do you know what? I want to make my platform not just about gossip. I want my platform to be useful. I want people to watch the videos and be like, oh, okay, that's how they did it. So I can do it too. Or, oh, that's something that kept them going when they was going through bad times. So let me take that advice on board and use it too. So I started the Conversations with CEO segment, and I've enjoyed every single one interview that I've done for Conversation with CEOs, because not only does it make me feel good, making people feel good about themselves. I think as being a young person and a creator, whatever industry you're in, sometimes you forget your wins. And until I sit down with someone and say to them, like think about the best moments you've had in your life, or the best achievements, and some of them will say like, whoa, like I never really thought of it like that, or I didn't think that was a win because, you know, I've been working so hard. Once it's done, you just kind of forget about it. So having that impact on seeing how my like interviewees react, and then people coming to me like, oh wow, I really enjoyed that episode of, you know, Conversation CEOs. It made me want to carry on even more. And then my first paid segment to my podcast was Talking Youthwork with the VRU. So that was like a collaboration. And I've enjoyed that too. However, I'll be very honest, it's been very hard to secure interviews with youth workers. Um, it made me realize that I used to have this outlook on youth workers when I was young, that they were all just annoying and on my backs and just like was just on me too much. But then as time has gone by, I've realized there's actually youth workers out there that want to see young people do well, and that's the ones that I want on my podcast to speak about, you know, how great they've been doing and how they feel as well throughout their journey. Because some youth workers that speak to you, like, they had a hard time becoming youth workers, like actually, like you said yourself, like, you know, actually getting those jobs or being able to be in those positions. And I think the ones that failed me, the ones that didn't turn up to my interviews or cancelled on me last minute and just didn't respect my time, are not the ones that I want to put forefront in my on my podcast. um I just have to say I am deciding to put podcasting to an end for a bit. Just because, as you know, I've got so much stuff going on. And even though I do love podcasting and I'll never stop doing it, I just think there's avenues right now that I need to focus on a lot more. Um, but I'm not completely stopping it yet, just yet. But it's in the work. So yeah.
You're reviewing your priorities, maybe.
Yeah, basically, pretty much. I've enjoyed the run and everything, but people don't realize how hard it is to run a platform by yourself. Especially when you got to do the interviewing, you got to do the editing, you got to do the promo, you got to do the marketing. Like, it's a lot to do when, you know, I literally turned 22 last month. I've got bills to pay, I've got work to do, I've got YPAG to do, I've got gym to do. I've got so much stuff to do all at once while trying to run my podcast and give quality as well. Like doing the interviews is fine, but it's when it comes to the behind the scene work of staying, you know, like you said, like being consistent with posting and stuff like that, is it becomes such, it's becoming more of a chore than I'm feeling, more than,
Mm.
you know, more than something that I actually really want to like do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I hear you, and it's. I heard somebody's podcast earlier in the week, and I can't even remember who it was, but it was all about energy. And I went to an event a couple of days ago. It was an award ceremony, and there was a really elderly lady talking about her life's experience. And one thing she said was that women have a lot of energy, and she said,
Very true.
women have a lot of energy, but we have to make sure that we channel the energies so that the energy is being used to benefit us. And also, sometimes the energies can be negative depending on where we are, our environment, and who we surround ourselves to. And it really hit me because, like, when I was your age and even older, I was always told, oh my gosh, you've, all my friends said, you have more energy than us. And I'd say, no, I don't. We all have the same energy. I just can't be sitting
Un-
around. I just want to get on with it.
yeah, you've unlocked it. You've unlocked it. People say to me all the time as well, not so much energy, but you're always working. You're always doing something. Like, don't you know when to switch off? And I'm kind of like, well, this is being working so much, or working on something, or doing the hobby that I like to do, isn't necessarily me just being on the go. It's what I like to do. I like to be busy. I'm not, it's not, I don't have it. It feels weird to have a day of just doing nothing. Even though you do have to do that for your mental health and stuff, you do. Honestly, it's like it is part of like how like working life works, but having a day of doing nothing doesn't feel right to me, because I always feel like there's something to do. There's always something you could be doing with your time, and you know, so I totally get it when you say to me that people always like, you have so much energy. I just think as well, like, it's not even that you have so much energy, you just unlock the energy that's for you, if that makes sense. Some people haven't tapped into that energy yet. You know, they haven't found something that's makes them so driven to want to work for it every day, or you know, better it or find solutions for it. So if you want to say that I have a lot of energy or that I work a lot, then fine. But you know, it's that doesn't mean that I'm gonna stop, because I think honestly, I think
I wouldn't say you have necessarily more energy than other people. I would say that you utilize your energy. But again, sometimes I think in today's world, like, I think we get misled that we have to be everywhere. So
mm,
for me, I wasn't on any social media, but at work, we have Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And I watch stuff, but I'm not on any of it. Can't stand Facebook. But I love LinkedIn. And I found, like, the more with LinkedIn, it's always upgrading, getting better. And this opportunity to do the live streaming, I love this because it just really allows me to talk and share. Like what you're saying is, lots of people are listening and hearing what you're saying. And LinkedIn is full of the millions of people from all over the world. When I came to LinkedIn and became more visible, Jade, I realized that the world is not so small.
mm,
There is people all over the country, the world. I've got connections in Canada, America, Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, so many places. And sometimes I'm collaborating with total strangers. It's also opening other doors. People are coming to me and saying, Manwar, I need a mentor, I need a coach. That's not something I thought I could do because I work 4 days a week as a CEO.
mm.
But what I found was my team really thought I was doing too much and wanted to help me.
Help
So,
you.
yeah, so when you have, like, you're surrounded by other people that want to see you achieve as well, they know I do this stuff like this, and they encourage it. And also, like, I think nothing is more inspiring than somebody who is continually learning and growing. If you're learning and growing, I mean, there's loads of things I want to learn. Don't get me wrong. I know I don't have time for all of it. Sometimes you have to delegate and you have to offload. But
Yeah,
there are things that I'm passionate about.
yeah, exactly, exactly the same. I think I think now I'm at a stage of my life where I'm kind of, I wouldn't say that I'm lost, but I'm kind of like, okay, like priorities now kind of thing. Where does your heart actually lie? Like, I think I went through a phase where I was doing things just to stay busy, but they weren't actually what I was passionate about or like my love for something. So, like, before I started with the Princess Trust, I was on an internship with the Foreign Office, and it was great pay. Being a civil servant was great pay. Like, it was good pay, but it didn't serve me. It didn't make me happy. I didn't wake up every day and feel like I want to log into my laptop and work. It made me feel dragged. Like, it made me feel like I was literally working just to get my paycheck every month. And even though I felt like that, I still utilized it because there's a lot of stuff I learned at the Foreign Office, which I can put into play within youth work or within my corporate roles, because you can learn so much. It's just how you kind of look at things. But I just knew that that's not where I want to stay for the rest of my life, if that makes sense. So when it was coming to the end of my internship and they offered me another year, stayed the extra year, and it kind of got to the end and I was kind of like, you know what? I think it's time I start looking for another job where I actually love what I do. You know, wake up every day and feel like excited to get started with something, or want to be there and be in the presence of the young people or the colleagues that I work with. And that's why I went straight to the Princess Trust, because I knew that's somewhere I can excel within youth work. And then one day when I'm actually ready to do it on my own, and plus all the work that I've done with the YPAG and the VRU, I'm able to say that I've built all these skills, taken it with me and put it into play by myself. So but yeah, it took me a while to realize where my heart was actually lying. And even with like my media work and my youth work, sometimes it's like I can't do this presenting gig because I have a youth event that I need to host at. It's hard to pick sometimes because I want them both. But I realize once I build my foundation to a point where I'm at a point where I can do both of them joint together or simultaneously, that's the goal for me. So yeah, I think I now have found like two passions where I work and they all work together. So yeah.
You've just led me to ask, you talked about investment in your last podcast.
Yeah.
We did listen to it, and I thought, how fascinating. So, investment now, and I think the opposite to investment is asking, because, what I have done in the past is asked my employer for something and they have not entertained it. I've gone and bought it myself, paid for it myself. But afterwards, I realized actually I could have had it because I wasn't maybe forced. Well, maybe I didn't sell myself or I didn't explain myself why I wanted it.
Yeah.
Sometimes employers won't invest in you if they feel you're going to move on because they're not going to benefit from that investment.
Mm.
But if an employer does invest, this is my experience, that if we do invest, the staff member is more than likely not want to go because they are then going to have an opportunity to use that investment to put it into practice, because learning is theory, right? And then you have to put it into practice, and a
Mm.
lot of employers don't necessarily provide that opportunity. So how many people have you asked in the last year or two to help you? It's not a trick question.
That's quite a hard question. I think, do you know what? I think I've been open to ask for help now a little bit more now since I started the YPAG, definitely. I think Jerome and Darwin both had started to make it very clear, if you don't ask, you don't get. So, I've definitely been more now, especially now that I'm trying to like properly build solid foundations. I'm asking people for help because I see that they're doing well at it, and they must have started somewhere where I am right now. So there's no harm in asking for the help. And if they say no, it's okay. Like, I think I was afraid as well of hearing the no from people, because I've always been so independent and always wanted to do things by myself, and I don't need anybody else to help me do anything. But in this life, your network is your network. Is your Terrell's always telling me your network is your network. So obviously, I've realized that, asking people for help doesn't mean I'm weak, or doesn't mean that I'm not a strong, independent woman. It just means that someone might be able to offer me something that I don't necessarily have to pay for. It's like I'm learning how to DJ at the moment, and I've got so many friends that know how to DJ, like so many of them. But I was always scared to ask, or scared to go to their gigs and like sit there and just watch them and take notes and stuff. 'Cause I just thought it was a weird thing to do. But like now, I've been to my friends, look, like, I kind of want to jump on this DJ thing, and they're like, well, invited me to every set, getting me in the rooms with people that I've got like DJ courses, and like people who are offering me to like actually help me. And those things, if I was to pay for them, they cost a lot of money to learn how to DJ. So now I'm using my network to my advantage. It's helped me so much. Um, but yeah, I can't stress enough to people, like, it's so much better to just ask for the help. I know sometimes it might take a lot out of you to ask, but it's worth it. Like, it is worth it in the long run. Yeah.
I can't tell you how many events I've gone to, like coaching sessions and things, workshops run by coaches where they talk about the same thing,
Mm,
that women find it the hardest to ask. And just imagine, I'm in my 40s and I only learned how to ask in the last 3 years. And
mm,
that's why I asked you that question. It's excellent what you say, but my dear, how are you going to prove and how are you going to put it into practice in the next 6 months? Because this is where we sometimes the conscience or the voice in our head gets in the way. As I always say, our mind is our biggest barrier, because whatever assumption you're making doesn't even exist half the time. So I'll give you an example. I know a young person who wanted to go into politics, and on LinkedIn, I knew someone who was highly influential, like someone who has like quite a fantastic career.
mm,
And I thought that person could really use their influence or their privilege, to support this young person. But I got misunderstood. That person that I was kind of asking got offended, like, oh, I've helped so many people. What gives you the idea that I don't actually help people? It wasn't what I said, it's maybe how I said it. I could have phrased it differently. But
mm,
I think what it is like, we don't realize that, because that individual, that adult said to me, well, that young person knows me. Why is she not asking me? I always help anyone who asks. But we forget we were like that.
mm,
If we as if I me as a 40 something year old doesn't have the courage to ask, why are we going to assume a young person's going to ask for help? So I'm a little bit different, and I get slapped on my wrist and I get told off, especially in the coaching world. Don't try and like help people they haven't asked for your help, I often get told.
mm,
Right? But I just look at it this way. I think a lot of people are unaware how they can help.
yeah.
I don't think it's nastiness. I don't think it's discrimination. I think people are just they're just doing a job, but they don't realize, hold on a minute, I'm a CEO or a director of this and that, and my company's got a £5 million budget. Actually, we do need somebody podcasting for us and raising the bar in youth work. How about like we employ Jade?
Mm,
Do you see my point? Like,
yeah.
there's somebody I hope who's listening right now, or is going to listen at a later point and say, you know what, I like that girl and I like her energy, and let's see if we can. But there are lots of people sitting like that with
Yeah.
privileges and they don't even realize it.
But then the thing is that I feel like me and you, I can tell that your energy is so amazing, and how much like you really want to see people grow and you really want to see people do well. Some people just don't have that in them. And it's something that I it's taken me a long, even sometimes now, like when I meet people or like people, for example, my podcast itself, me looking at these youth workers on Instagram and LinkedIn and seeing all the amazing work that they do for young people. So I'm thinking, okay, let me inquire and see if they want to come on my podcast. They agree, we set a time, we set a date. The last thing I'm going to expect is that person to cancel the same day as our interview, because I have seen, from what I see, is you do so much work for young people. Why would you do that to me, kind of thing? But then like I said, it's taken me a long time to understand that not everybody is as clean hearted as you are, or really, really wants to see the growth, or their hands might be tied and stretched in places that you might not be able to see. So you that animosity that I started to build up when I started to see how people would react to, like, me asking for help, or me wanting to pass someone on to get help, or ask them to come down to do something for me. And that animosity or that anger I used to build up because I didn't understand why they did what they did, or why they didn't want to help people, or why they didn't want to be involved. It just got to a point now where I'm just like, it is what it is, and I can only make as much people who wants to help and wants to help young people grow as much as I can. Not everybody's gonna be the same clean hearted as me. So at the end of the day, then
Jade,
this
I'm
is
going
what.
to turn this around. I'm going to turn this around a little bit for you. Hope you don't mind because I have a perspective on it, right? So I believe that most people tend to, especially in the youth sector and in the charity sector, tend to focus on what they see as the visible difference they're making,
Mm,
right? So, quite often in the youth work world, where you're working with maybe a young person who's been trafficked, or I've gone home sometimes, right? And I might have stepped in my senior role, battling with the social services in some
mm,
borough, and I'm trying to get a young person into care, right?
yeah.
This might I'm just giving you a real example. A 16-year-old, I was trying to get her into care. I come home, I'm on the dinner table with my family, my husband and my kids, and I've got the mobile right next to me, right? And my family know that it's an emergency because this young girl has nowhere to go. She's been sleeping in, like the railway station. So for me, that's a priority. Now, when you're trying to interview frontline staff like that, quite often be mindful that they might be doing things like that
Mm,
because we don't know what their workload is like. And also, I think as human beings, our heart usually follows where we see the biggest difference we're making. So, an average youth worker will want to get a young girl into like care instead of, right, let's go to this podcast because I don't want to let Jade down. Do you understand what I'm saying?
mm,
And it's not, I'm not being disrespectful. I hope you understand that. It's just my years of experience in youth work. I know how things can really go. There's been times where I had a family just dropped at me, and my own line manager went home, and I was quite like just a few months into the job. It was in a refuge, a women's refuge, and it was a woman who'd been injured and she needed hospital treatment, and I had nowhere to put her. She had a small child. I called my boss. I said, "Look, I've got to pick up my son from nursery. What do I do?" She said, "Leave her there and go." And I said, "I can't. I can't just leave her there and go." So I paid from my own pocket to get a cab to my son's nursery, but I made sure this woman had somewhere to go. So sometimes these things happen, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but there's another reason why I say that. So I became a mentor for London Youth, and they gave me a few like mentees. And what I found was, and I did actually feed back to them, is I found it really hard to hold the appointments with them because they couldn't keep with it. And what I discovered from that is youth workers come from backgrounds where there's a lot of need, problems, chaos. We have our own problems. I grew up in the environment. I grew up, in an area with racial discrimination, came from a working class family, battled my way most of my life. So I understand how you can lose those youth workers. So I was like, oh my God, I've been given these mentees. I'm chasing this woman. She's not getting back to me. And I'm like, I don't want to lose this one. And you know what? I managed to turn it around and I had one meeting with her. But I told London Youth it's always going to be challenging because the youth work, the sector is such a rough place to be.
I think coming, like, hearing what you're saying, it's not that I didn't understand that, because throughout my whole life I've had to deal with youth workers, social workers and things where things come up in work that you can't necessarily just cut off and come to do an interview. I think everybody's predicament's different, and I think as if you're agreeing to do something for a young person, regardless if you're not able to do it that day or that time, it should be something you still try to make it happen. I think with a lot of the youth workers that have cancelled on me or bailed out on me on my podcast, there's been no reassurance that there's gonna be another interview. There's been no reassurance that, oh, I apologize. Same way as things might go happen outside work or at work. It's just a bit of understanding that this is my time too. Like, this is something that I do for free. This is something that's not paying me. And me wanting to have you on my platform to show the positive work that you've done. It's me. I might not have a crazy big platform, but you never know who this is gonna touch, or you never know if you're gonna touch me. So by them cancelling, it's not, oh, you're cancelling and I'm now angry. It's cancelling and then not trying to make it work for the next time. And just acknowledging that, yeah, you've taken time out, but this is my time too. And I think it's just a matter of respect on both parties, that, yeah, you might be. So, for example, one of the people that cancelled on me, they're not youth, they're a youth worker, but they're more like in the limelight, as in, like, they've now started up their own organization. They've collabed with, like, labels and things like that. So yeah, that's great what you're doing, and it's amazing to the outside world what you do. But I think behind the scenes, sometimes you start to see that it's not all glitz and glams behind the scenes, and sometimes the way that people, like, reply to emails or get back or never get back to you, or promise that they're going to do this and never get back to you. I think because I'm still a young person, I have a right to feel the way that I feel sometimes. And then to say, okay, cool, you've cancelled on me twice now. I'm making the decision out for myself and my podcast and my time that I'm not going to have you on, because at the end of the day, yes, you are doing good things. And I'm not going to take that away from some of the people that have wanted on my podcast. But it's a matter of respecting me and what I do. And I don't feel like you respect me enough to have cancelled on me twice. The way that your organization skills, as someone who's, meant to be for the young people, you're bailing out on a young person who's planned this whole interview for you more than once. It's just something, it's a bit techie, and I do understand it from a practitioner's point of view, because I guess I'm kind of working my way into that lifestyle. But I just think there's a certain amount of etiquette a person should have regardless. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you need to cancel, but don't just leave it to the other person to try and reschedule when they've tried to reschedule with you like a million of times. Like, you have to put some type of effort in there too, because at the end of the day, they want you on their platform for a certain reason. Why would you not want to be on there anyways, if that makes sense? It's a
Yeah,
bit.
no, I totally, you know what, I'm glad you made that distinction because it is important. And it is about trying to make sure that you value somebody's time. I mean, I don't do this often myself, and purely for that reason. I did actually think about interviewing youth workers, Jade, but because of the experience I've had, I thought it was going to be difficult getting hold of them because they don't actually prioritize stuff like this.
Mm,
I've been talking to some youth workers who are CEOs and saying, look, you guys need to be more visible because you worry about not getting enough funding, but then nobody knows about your work. You need to talk
exactly.
about it passionately. If you can't talk passionately about your work,
Exactly.
and about young people, youth work in general, then what confidence are you giving to the funders that you're doing what you say you're doing?
Exactly.
So I get you. I totally get you. And I do think it's disrespectful. Just saying that youth workers are probably not the best people to be chasing because they're just hard to get hold of.
Yeah.
But
Something
I
I've learned, definitely something I've learned over time. And I just think as well, I think another reason why I decided that I just kind of want to put a pause to the podcast and stuff. I think when you're a single host, a lot of podcasts have like co-hosts or like a group of people. I think when you're a single host, because my podcast isn't one where I'm directly just talking to my audience, I'm meant to be talking with a guest. You're then having a business that's dependent on other people showing up. Does that make sense? So if someone doesn't show up to my podcast one week, I'm not gonna have a podcast to upload. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like I want to get to a point where my podcasts are so concise and to the point where I don't need to have a guest on. And I think that's gonna take me time to, actually get the blueprint of how to work that and how to not waffle and go off into so millions of tangents in a podcast because I'm not with a guest that can conversate with me back. I'm just directly talking to my audience, if that makes sense. So I realized, I think that part of podcasting, of me just being a single host and having to depend on someone to turn up every week, made me realize that that's not the type of podcasting that I want to do. So yeah, because it can get disheartening as well sometimes. Like you get really excited to interview someone, and then whatever reason it is, they don't show up, and then you don't have no content to release. You're kind of in a position where you're like, oh no, like what do I do, kind of thing. I'm not gonna be able to show my consistency as a podcaster because I'm not gonna have nothing to upload right now. So
That's a
yeah.
big
Yeah.
letdown. That's a big letdown, and really, I can see that's probably one of your been your greatest challenges with.
Yeah, definitely. I've had quite a few in my time, and it's like I think as time's gone by, I've just dealt with it. I've definitely dealt with it way better than my first couple ones. But it just made me realize that if I want to have guests on every week, I guess I just have to be to a certain point in my career where people are tons of people are messaging me to come on my podcast. That does that make sense? Not me reaching out and hoping for the best that people are gonna come. Like when, for example, if you're a Spotify podcaster, you're gonna have guests every week because you got a team who does all of that for you. You know, books and schedule people, and if someone cancels, they're already on it trying to find someone else to fill the gap. So with just Jade doing it by herself and my connections are not crazy big. I have a good network, but definitely got a lot more growing to do. Yeah, it's gonna take a
I'm
while.
gonna, you just got something spark off in my head. I'm gonna definitely be talking to you about that afterwards. I think you're gonna get a lot of guests. But yeah, I'm just writing it down so I remember, because with my energy, I could go a little bit off track as well. I just
Definitely.
wanted to ask you as well, who has been your biggest support, your biggest inspiration?
Oh, that's a hard question. Um, I think my biggest inspiration, I think, has to be my mum. I think everything throughout my life, I was definitely a challenging kid. She's technically my stepmom, but I call her my mum. I was definitely a challenging kid. I definitely put her through the rails and the rosters, and till this day, everything I do it for her too. I think a lot of my dreams and aspirations and goals is for me and it's to help other people. But that's the one person that truly, if when the moment she said to me, I think it was like when I did a BBC interview. And she was just like, I'm just so proud of you. I think for me, that is more than any money in this world that could make me so happy. And like even talking about it now, I can feel my eyes watering because
Oh,
she's
bless.
honestly like this the one person that has just kept me, I guess, kept me grounded. We've had our ups and downs, but that's one person I want to be able to be like, I paid for her house, I paid all her bills. She doesn't have to work a finger anymore. Um, but support wise, I think it's just been a bunch of people, to be honest, throughout like meeting different friends and I guess from school. There's been people that I think have definitely pushed me onto the right path. Like my youth worker that I had when I was living in a semi-independent accommodation, she went above and beyond for me. Darwin, Jerome, you know, them helping me, Chloe helping me get into jobs, getting me into rooms that I've never, you know, been in before. My friends putting me in rooms I've never been in before. So I think the support is quite wide. A couple people have definitely, I guess, maybe dropped off of that support as you grow up. You lose friends, you lose connection with people, I guess. But yeah, and I think probably I would say me being my biggest support, I guess, because I think been days when I've just wanted to drop everything and just forget it all and lock off and no social media. Like you say, how you're not on social media. If I didn't have to be, I wouldn't. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, only God knows I would not be on it. But I think me just being telling myself like this is not the end. Like you've got so much more to do. You've got so much more to your future is your beholder. You can create your future yourself. It's I think I think me's been my biggest support, to be fair. So yeah, that's quite a hard question.
It's wonderful you said that. I'm so happy you said that because not many people realize that. You
Yeah.
know, we talked about energy, and that's what you and I both have in common. Even if we don't know each other's stories, our backstories, but lived experience is a very good reason why we do what we do and why we are who we are. But a lot of it is, you know, that question around who's your biggest supporter. Yes, my father was my supporter and inspiration. Your stepmother is your inspiration, and there will always be people along the way that will support and empower us, but the biggest champion is the one inside you,
That's right.
because you, if someone tells you you can't do something, who tells you you can?
You. And I
Exactly.
and I think as well, like people can, you know, like when you go through stages when you're upset or you're down, or you know, and people might notice it. The people around you might notice that you're upset and down, and they might give you those words of encouragement that might make you feel a little bit better, but you're not 100% better. But that person who gets up out of their bed every day to go to work or to do something is you. You're the only person who does that. So overall, you are your biggest supporter, because if you don't tell yourself no, like Jade, you got to get up and do this, or you know, come on, like let's get you back into a high vibration instead of being in a low one. Me is gonna drag me out of the dirt to get myself back to the light again. So yeah,
Absolutely. Extremely inspirational what you've just said, Jade. I hope anybody listening is going to resonate with it. And I'm sure we'll get comments later. We've got a few people online listening. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Thank you to anyone who's listening right now. And, you know, please feel free to share any comment you have, especially for Jade, because this is a learning experience for both of us, right?
definitely.
And my last two questions to you. One is, what's your vision for the future for young people?
Okay.
Not personal.
For
Yeah.
young people, my vision, so I wanna I want to see young people in a position where they are able to build a foundation for themselves or based off of the reality of life. I think a lot of institutions, school being one of them, like they don't teach you about things you actually are gonna have to live through in everyday life. I think I want young people to not be scared of growing up as well. Even though a lot of us wish that we grow up, when we do start to, it starts to get worried. You start to worry about a lot of things. bills, money. I want young people to feel comfortable to talk about their finances, to talk about, what they want to do with themselves, or things that they're passionate about, and not be able to be afraid to speak about it. I think young females as well, I think definitely along the lines of feeling safe. You know, I want to be able to the vision for me for young females is, being able to walk outside and not feel like, they're gonna get grabbed up by this person, or whatever clothes they decide to come out in, they're not going to be judged in the certain clothes that they decide to wear, or I guess looked down upon for the way that they look, the way they do their makeup, body standards, things like that. Young men as well, not feeling pressured by what goes on in, like, I guess, the music scene, and like the lifestyle scene, that they have to be that guy, when really and truly they should just be getting to know themselves. And I think there needs to be a lot of work vision wise. I would love to see like a lot more work and a lot in everywhere. Mental health, like, I think a lot of people are going through a lot of mental health issues that no one knows about and no one speaks about it, and it starts from young. Like, you don't even know, a lot of young people are depressed and they don't even know it. So it would be nice to see a lot more work around those things in particular, because I think if they start nailing it down from when they're in school, and things, fundamentals and procedures start getting put in that can help our young people build themselves into a solid foundation, it will just be ideal. But I know there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So the vision's there, I can see it, but it's just like, I guess it's just time, who you collaborate with, who actually wants to see it work, and I guess just getting it done.
Mm-hmm. And that takes you to your vision, doesn't it? Where do
Yeah.
you want to be in a year or two?
A year or two. Oh, that's hard. I think I want to be in a position where I'm starting to get closer to the goal of, I guess, building my own organization on how to get young people to build off of their pain, um, build off of their experience. I want to be in a position where I have my own show, hopefully on like BBC, where I'm like doing radio. I want to be in a position where I can train young people in health and fitness as well. I guess I'm learning how to be a PT now, so I found love for fitness through the gym. I basically helped my anger through going to the gym. So I want to be able to reciprocate that. And I guess as well, going into schools, speaking at more youth events, I think throughout all of the things that I want to do, mindset and motivations is two things that I definitely want to dive into. So whether that's giving speeches, at schools and empowering young people to want to do better for themselves, or whether that's physically getting someone in the motivation mindset of how to train their body and, be more positive and see life in a positive way. I think, yeah, I think 1 to 2 years is a bit of a hard way, because time is just flying by, and yeah. But the overall goal is to just have my own organization, and yeah, I guess just to be the best presenter and host there is. Yeah.
My last question. It's an unusual one.
Okay.
What makes you unique? Because you know you're unique, right?
Hmm. I don't really. I haven't never really thought about that. Um. I don't know. That's a hard question. What makes
So
me?
if you met another 20 people with the name Jade, what's unique about you that stands out that none of the others would have? If you don't want to answer it, come back in a year's time and we have this conversation again. You
Yeah,
can.
I think that's a really hard question, because the first thing that came into my mind was my drive. I don't think anybody has the same drive that I have. I don't think anybody wants it as like wants it as much as I do. Um, but then at the same time, I've met a few people in my life that are like just as much driven. as me. So yeah, I don't know. I think I might have to get back to you on that one. On that one, that's quite hard.
No worries. I think maybe in a year's time we'll catch up again, maybe live stream again, and
Yeah, that
we
would be
can
good.
yeah, think it through. But yeah, somebody's just put a message, very inspirational. Would love to introduce young people to reconnect to nature and learn to journal and set goals. If you're interested, getting in touch through LinkedIn. Okay, so you might get quite a few messages like that where people want to collaborate.
Yeah.
Uh, and don't forget what
Yeah, no, just to say to that the lady who did write that, I journal myself. So that's something that I think has helped me as well. Definitely. I have like this 5 minute journal in the morning. I just write three things I want to get done. You know, motivation and yeah, I guess gratitude as well. A lot of young people forget to be, even though I think young people focus a lot on the bad things and thinking about the good things that they have to offer or the good things that might be going on in their life. So yeah, that's one thing journaling helped me realize, to be more grateful for the things that I have and to use that gratitude, I guess, to push through the pain as well. So yeah.
and that's such a fantastic thing you've just shared. Like, I have to say, at 22, your habits are amazing, and those are the things that drive you and are what's going to push you forward. I personally feel that. But yeah, it's been wonderful talking to you today, Jade. We can go on forever, but
No, good.
it's been just over an hour. And just if for anybody who listens to our conversation at some point wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
LinkedIn. My name on LinkedIn is Jade Barnett. Or Instagram. My Instagram handle is its_Jade Brown. Those are probably the best ways to get in touch with me. I'm pretty active. Young people always use our phones, so I'm gonna see it regardless. So yeah, but I'm definitely open to like any collaborations or any speaking to anyone about anything to do with youth work or media work. I'm happy to. I think I need to build my network, so I'll be very appreciative of it.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Please, people, do get in touch with Jade. And we never know what doors might open, and what possibilities there might be. But it's been great to have you, Jade. Thank you very much for making my Sunday evening.
Thank you. Thank you too.
So great. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you. You take care. Have a wonderful Sunday evening.
You too. Speak to you soon.